Well, good morning. Welcome to the Saturday, May 9th edition of Quarantining with Pastor Michelle. Yes, I am wearing a hat and I'm wearing the same clothes as I did yesterday because Saturdays sometimes are just the I don't care days. No, I'm just kidding. Saturdays for me have turned into kind of the day where I decide whether or not I want to do anything besides lay on the couch, and usually I don't decide to do anything else. Anyway, I just hope everyone had a good week. Today, as I said, is Saturday, May 9th, and this is another edition of Quarantining with Pastor Michelle. And I thought we'd start out with some reflections from this book. Unity cannot exist when exclusion is allowed to occur. I was graced with this teaching years ago when I was working as a traditional elder's helper. The teaching was given in the context of the sacred pipe, but its intention was to help me understand community. What brings us together cannot exist in the same time and place as what keeps us apart. You, me, everyone, my choice is to be aware of our similarities, our yearning for truth, peace, love, belonging, welcome, grace, mercy, a God of our own understanding, and at least one moment of real contact at the heart of every day. Seeing that I am in more, included, extended, and in harmony, until that moment when I no longer see. And here is a conversation between a person and an elderly person. The person asks, "Why am I alive?" The other person answers, "Because everything else is." "No, I mean the purpose." And the other person says, "That is the purpose. To learn about your relatives." "My family?" "Yes, the moon, stars, rocks, trees, plants, water, insects, birds, mammals, your whole family. Learn about that relationship, how you're moving through time and space together. That's why you're alive." And let's start with some prayer. Our Father and Mother who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So, how's everyone's week been? I know just a few minutes ago we got our weekly grocery delivery. Now I think maybe the next time I'll actually venture out, because I have decided the next 3 weeks until DeWine lifts the official, stay at home, I want to phase my way back into work. So like next week, I'm going to go back one day, the following week 2, the following week 3, and then until I go back my 4 days a week, because that is typically how many days I work in the office, because I typically take at least one day off. But just thinking out loud, because it's been several weeks that I've just been in the house, and I think I need to gradually get back in there, because it's going to be an adjustment working from home, or working from the office, because I've gotten into a routine, I won't lie, and so I'm going to have to develop another routine. In a very routine right now. For the past several weeks, I've had a set routine, and I'm a creature of habit, so I like routine. So I need to develop a new routine soon. So I wonder how everyone else is doing, adjusting, slowly getting back into the world. I know it's still scary out there, even going back out. But I know we do the best that we can, right? So I hope everyone is doing as well as can be during these crazy times. And so without further ado, I just had a few words to say this morning, but I do want to read a little bit from Charlotte's Web. All right. And so last time on Charlotte's Web, Charlotte sang to Wilbur to get him to sleep. Remember, and I sang as well. I won't be singing today, don't worry. So let's continue on. The next day was Saturday. Fern stood at the kitchen sink drying the breakfast dishes as her mother washed them. Mrs. Arable worked silently. She hoped Fern would go out and play with other children instead of heading for the Zuckerman's barn to sit and watch animals. "Charlotte is the best storyteller I ever heard," said Fern, poking her dish towel into a cereal bowl. "Fern," her mother said, "you must not invent things. You know spiders don't tell stories. Spiders can't talk." Charlotte can, she said. She doesn't talk very loud, but she talks. What kind of story did she tell? Asked Mrs. Arable. Well, Fern said she told us about a cousin of hers who caught a fish in her web. Don't you think that's fascinating? Fern, dear, how would a fish get in a spider's web? You know it couldn't happen. You're making this up. Oh, it happened all right, replied Fern. Charlotte never fibs. This cousin of hers built a web across a stream. One day she was hanging around on the web and a tiny fish leaped into the air and got tangled in the web. The fish was caught by one fin. Mother, its tail was wildly thrashing and shining in the sun. Can't you just see the web sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish? Charlotte's cousin kept slipping in, dodging out, and she was beaten mercilessly over the head by the wildly thrashing fish, dancing in, dancing out, throwing. Fern, snapped her mother, stop it. Stop inventing these wild tales. I'm not inventing, said Fern. I'm just telling you the facts. What really happened? Asked her mother, whose curiosity began to get the better of her. Charlotte's cousin won. She wrapped the fish up, then she ate him when she got good and ready. Spiders have to eat the same as the rest of us. Yeah, I suppose they do, said Mrs. Arable vaguely. Charlotte has another cousin who is a balloonist. She stands on her head, lets out a lot of line, and is carried aloft on the wind. Mother, wouldn't you simply love to do that? Yes, I would. I come to think of it, replied Mrs. Arable. But, Fern, darling, I wish you could go and play outdoors instead of going to Uncle Homer's barn. Find some of your playmates and do something nice outdoors. You're spending too much time in that barn, and it isn't good for you to be alone so much. Alone? Alone? My best friends are in the barn cellar. It's a very sociable place, not at all lonely. Fern disappeared after a while, walking down the road toward Zuckerman's. Her mother dusted the sitting room. As she worked, she kept thinking about Fern. It didn't seem natural for a little girl to be so interested in animals. Finally, Mrs. Arable made up her mind. She would pay a call on old Dr. Dorian and ask his advice. So she got in the car and drove to his office in the village. Dr. Dorian had a thick beard, and he was glad to see Mrs. Arable and gave her a comfortable chair. It's about Fern, she explained. Fern spends entirely too much time in the Zuckerman's barn. It doesn't seem normal. She sits on a milk stool in a corner of the barn cellar near the pig pen and watches animals hour after hour. She just sits and listens. Dr. Dorian leaned back and closed his eyes. How enchanting, he said. It must be real nice and quiet down there. Homer has some sheep, hasn't he? Yes, said Mrs. Arable, but it all started with that pig we let Fern raise on a bottle. She calls him Wilbur. Homer bought the pig, and ever since it left our place, Fern has been going to our uncle's to be near it. I've been hearing things about that pig, said Dr. Dorian, opening his eyes. They say he's quite a pig. Have you heard about the words that appeared in the spider's web? Asked Mrs. Arable nervously. Yes, replied the doctor. Well, do you understand it? Understand what? Do you understand how there could be writing in a spider's web? Oh, no, said Dr. Dorian. I don't understand it, but for that matter, I don't understand how a spider learned to spin a web in the first place. When the words appeared, everyone said they were a miracle, but nobody pointed out that the web itself is a miracle. What's miraculous about a spider's web? Said Mrs. Arable. I don't see why you say a web is a miracle. It's just a web. Well, have you ever tried to spin one? Mrs. Arable shifted uneasily in her chair. No, but I can crochet a doily and I can knit a sock. Sure, but somebody taught you, didn't they? And there is Mrs. Arable, and there's the thick-bearded Dr. Dorian. My mother taught me. Well, who taught a spider? A young spider knows how to spin a web without any instructions from anybody. Don't you regard that as a miracle? I suppose so. I never looked at it that way. Still, I don't understand how those words got into the web. I don't understand it, and I don't like what I can't understand. None of us do. I'm a doctor. Doctors are supposed to understand everything, but I don't understand everything, and I don't intend to let it worry me. Well, Fern says animals talk to each other, Dr. Dorian. Do you believe animals talk? I never heard one say anything, but that proves nothing. It's quite possible that an animal has spoken civilly to me, and I didn't catch the remark because I wasn't paying attention. Children pay better attention than grown-ups. If Fern says that the animals in Zuckerman's barn talk, I'm quite ready to believe her. Perhaps if people talk less, animals would talk more. People are incessant talkers. I can give you my word on that. Well, I feel better about Fern, said Mrs. Arable. You don't think I need to worry about her? Does she look well? Asked the doctor. Oh, yes. Appetite good? Oh, yes, she's always hungry. Sleep well at night? Oh, yes. Then don't worry. Do you think she'll ever stop start thinking about something besides pigs and sheep and geese and spiders? Well, how old is Fern? She's 8. Well, I think she will always love animals, but I doubt that she spends her entire life in Homer Zuckerman's barn cellar. How about boys? Does she know any boys? She knows Henry Fussy, said Mrs. Arable brightly. Dr. Dorian closed his eyes again and went into deep thought. Henry Fussy. Remarkable. Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Let Fern associate with her friends in the barn if she wants to. I would say offhand that spiders and pigs were fully as interesting as Henry Fussy. Yet I predict that the day will come when even Henry will drop some chance remark that catches Fern's attention. It's amazing how children change from year to year. How is Avery? He asked, opening his eyes wide. Oh, Avery? Chuckled Mrs. Arable. Avery is always fine. Of course he gets into poison ivy and gets stung by wasps and bees and brings frogs and snakes home and breaks everything he lays his hands on. But he's fine. Good, said the doctor. Mrs. Arable said goodbye and thanked Dr. Dorian very much for his advice. She felt greatly relieved. Well, very good words from Charlotte's Web, and most importantly, from Dr. Dorian, right? I love that line. I don't understand it, and I don't like what I can't understand. Well, amen to that on so many things, that people don't like what they can understand. People are afraid of it. So there's a whole sermon series I could do with Charlotte's Web, but I won't do it right now. But it is a good book, and it's been a while since I've read it. And so, my friends, I invite you in this time of quarantine and isolation, and even these difficult times, to look for miracles. I think Dr. Dorian says it best, that think about what a spider can do. A spider can spin a web without it being told how to do it. And there's miracles that are happening all around us. And I think sometimes we just have to take time to look and to notice. And so be on the lookout. And so God bless you all. And I will see anyone that's interested tonight for my bedtime story, which will be centered around the Disney classic Robin Hood. All right. God bless you all.